Hello, my name is Stan.
Hi, my name is Donat.
And we are from Multilogin, and we've decided to quickly make this video for you guys who are just starting out. In this video we will discuss how to configure your browser profiles with the maximum anonymity possible. We will also explain how different settings of the browser profile work, for what are they responsible for. And I highly encourage to watch this video even for experienced Multilogin users, because after watching this video you might find some settings which might be useful to your already existing configurations, and it might improve your success rates drastically. Now, I want to specifically point out that in this video we will be checking only Mimic and StealthFox browsers, simply because they have a bigger range of configurations, and they simply work better. In this video we will not going to talk about the difference between different plans, and also we will not discuss here anything regarding IP masking solutions. There will be an additional video for that. You can check the links for this video in the description. And if you don't see it, we'll probably post it soon. You can also check our Telegram channel where we post these videos regularly. So sign up to our Telegram channel to know the latest video. And the one final thing I want to tell is that this specific information in this video is actual for April 2018. So if you're watching this video somewhere in the future, I highly suggest that you check different videos that we've posted so far, simply by going to our Multilogin YouTube channel.
I would like to point out guys, that this is version 2.1, so if we have released some updates, there might be some differences, so please consider this and adjust your settings and configuration accordingly.
Okay, and let's get into configuring our new browser profile. In order to create a new browser profile, we just go to New Browser Profile. We already see the fast settings here. We create the name for the browser profile, very simple. We choose an operating system. Let's choose Windows. Now I currently want to specify that in 2.1 the operating system option does not work. However, it will work on 2.2.
Also, I would like to add that this operation system option, it does not configure your browser fingerprint. It's only a filter of what browser fingerprints you would like to get in Multilogin. So if you choose Windows, you'll already be getting Windows browser fingerprints corresponding to Windows. If you choose Linux, you'll be only getting fingerprints corresponding to Linux systems, and so on. And this does not affect your browser fingerprint. It's only a filter of what browser fingerprints you would like to be generated or composed.
Yeah, so it's just a filter for operating systems. Okay, so once we've chosen operating system on 2.2, currently it doesn't work, then we just need to choose the browser. Let's choose the browser and create profile. That's it, done. Thanks for watching this video. Oh, okay, obviously that was a joke. Now let's go ahead and explain the settings on the ones what we actually need to change. Okay, so once we've chosen the browser and the operating system, of course, the next setting is actually configuring the proxy settings. As we've told before, we are not going to discuss proxy settings here. This will be discussed in a separate video. Again, if the video is published, the links will be in the description. Okay, and the first thing that Multilogin allows you to do, the very first setting that it encourages you to do, is that it allows you to configure the browser profile settings in correspondence with your IP address. And essentially, when you create a browser profile, you have the option to click an option, fill Timezone, WebRTC and Geolocation fingerprints based on external IP. So once we click it, already Multilogin will configure your Timezone, WebRTC IP address and geolocation according to your external IP. And these things can be edited manually as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at what exactly is configured in Timezone, WebRTC and Geolocation. The first setting on our list is Timezone. We can configure time zone by either going to time zone right here or by clicking edit on the time zone field in the overview section. And essentially you already see the setting that will automatically fill your time zone based on your IP is what it says, fill time zone based on your IP. However, for certain cases you may want to change the IP yourself for some reason, and you can just choose any time zone here. Again, it's actually, you don't really need to do it manually. The whole point of time zone is that the time zone should correspond to the location of your IP address. So it's highly unlikely that you actually need to do it in any cases.
Yeah, but here I would like to add that if you decide to do this manually, please be aware that this is not a list of cities or countries or whatever. This is a list of standardized Unix time zones. So if you want to put the time zone manually, first need to find out in which time zone do your proxy is, or which time zone which time zone your location is, and then find the corresponding time zone from this Unix time zone list and choose it manually in Multilogin.
Yeah, good point. But for simplicity's sake, we actually advise you to leave this setting enabled. Okay, let's go back to the overview section. The next thing is WebRTC. For those of you that don't know, WebRTC is a built-in plugin in the browser which essentially can leak your IP address, your public IP address, your local IP address, and information about your media devices. Now, this specific setting in WebRTC concretely configures the IP leakage. Again, once you create a browser profile, it automatically enables WebRTC altering, and you have the option to either disable or put to real. Again, it's very advised that you substitute the WebRTC public IP address and local IP address, as currently most of the online users they don't have WebRTC disabled. And if you have the setting set to real and you're using any proxy and you're using a proxy, then the website can take your real IP address through WebRTC plugin.
It's highly advised to either use the altered mode or the real mode based on your connection type, because disabled mode was initially added to Multilogin 2 years ago. Back then it worked. Back then when this WebRTC technology was only became known to a wide public, basically all people started installing privacy add-ons from browser stores, browser markets, and disabling WebRTC was somewhat like normal behavior, but it's not normal anymore. If you visit some major websites like Facebook, Google, Amazon or whatever else, so it's WebRTC disabled, maybe this website will consider this behavior as suspicious. So based on your connection type, whether it's a proxy or a direct connection, you should choose between either altered or real mode. Altered mode substitutes WebRTC public IP address by the address of your proxy server or whichever like exit node you have in your connection. And the real mode basically leaves WebRTC enabled, and it's suitable if you are browsing, if you are only changing browser fingerprints with Multilogin, but using your actual connection to browse internet. For example, in the case when you are using 3G or 4G connection. So, Stan?
Yeah, so actually good point, Donat, that disabling WebRTC currently looks more suspicious than it was before. So it's highly advised, yes, so either you use altered or real. Real is for if the connection is the direct, for example 3G mobile connection, dongles or routers, because your public IP always still corresponds to your WebRTC one, and altered one is essentially good for proxies. Okay, so once so that's the whole idea of WebRTC. We just want to have both our real IP address to be equal to the one that website can retrieve from the WebRTC plugin. So yes, essentially if you use altered, there's definitely going to be more trust to your browser profiles from any specific website.
First, you can see local IP addresses here because WebRTC not only tells websites your public IP address but also provides local IP addresses. And this is because WebRTC is basically a plugin that is used for instant communication applications like video chats, audio chats, and so on. So this requires a direct connection between computers or between a server and your computer to make this connection faster. That's why it provides websites with a direct address and also tells local IP addresses of your device in the local network. So these local IPs, you don't, if you want to keep it simple, you don't need to touch them because those values that are generated in Multilogin, they are absolutely real looking, and you may have here one IP address or two IP addresses generated, so either IPv4 or IPv6, and it's all good. So basically leave it as it is and it will work good for you. Also, what I wanted to mention, in the beginning of WebRTC explanation, Stan mentioned media devices. Media devices is a component of WebRTC, but they're a bit specific. We'll later get back to them, but for now you need to know that even if you disable WebRTC completely, media devices will continue working. And later we'll explain how they are working and what exactly they are doing.
And the reason, because if it's even disabled, media devices keep still working. This is actually the reason why we've left this setting a bit separately. But okay, I guess that's all things about WebRTC. The next thing is geolocation. Okay, well, geolocation is a bit
Actually, nowadays geolocation is often being cast from new users automatically on different websites like Google or Facebook. For example, 2 days ago I was setting up a new laptop which had no previous browsing history, which has had no online accounts logged in. And I went to Google, just to google.com, and the first thing that Google asked was my geolocation. So this is kind of important parameter, and it's good to know when to reveal it and when to not reveal it.
Geolocation must not be confused with the location of your IP address. This specific setting alters the browser geolocation APIs. These are specific functions in the browser itself that tells to a website where your location is exactly. It takes this information from your Wi-Fi and from your network card, and approximates your locations based on that information. And this is why geolocation should always be the geolocation of these browser APIs should always be equal to the public IP address that you have. So it's highly advised that you actually have this geolocation enabled, as when the website may ping your browser to take out the information about your geolocation and see that your geolocation corresponds to the location of your public IP address, it may give you more trust as that you're actually being in that location, you're the person from that location, and it will just essentially give you more trust.
I'd like to clarify here that here Stan was talking about a normal browser behavior. Indeed, a normal browser can take this geolocation, can retrieve geolocation through a geolocation API by feeding multiple data points to it, such as nearby Wi-Fi networks and your IP address and so on. So basically it has a fallback mechanism. It first starts from those parameters that can detect your precise location. If that doesn't work, it falls back to less precise data, and if it doesn't work, it falls back to the IP to geo location detection. So, but it's not how it works in Multilogin. In Multilogin, of course, Multilogin won't scan your Wi-Fi networks and won't scan other data. It will just retrieve the geolocation based on your external IP address.
The one that you're using in the browser.
Yeah, so if you are using proxy, it will be the geolocation of that IP address that this proxy server has.
Yes. There are three options, either to prompt, allow, or block. Block essentially means what it means. It will just block whenever a website will try to take out the geolocation, your geolocation. It will just receive a response that the readout is blocked.
Yeah, so it's the same as if you go to google.com or facebook.com from in a normal browser, and it tries to retrieve your geolocation coordinates, and then click deny.
Deny. So it's automatic deny. It's automatic deny. Yes. Allow is essentially automatic allow. Whenever a website will try to ping and get your geolocation, you will automatically give the information without the prompt bar that the browser gives.
Yes, and pay attention that if you choose allow, every website that you access from this browser profile will be allowed to retrieve your geolocation. So if this option is very convenient, but it also can be dangerous if you visit multiple websites, and so maybe you want to provide the geolocation to one website and not provide to another, but by choosing this option we'll essentially provide your geolocation to any website that you visit from this browser profile, and that will ask for a geolocation.
And prompt essentially means that when you launch the Multilogin browser profile, it will show a prompt where you will be able to either click allow or block. Simple as that.
Yes, and prompt is basically this
double
option
checker.
replicates the normal browser behaviors, the normal browser interface. When you go to google.com in normal Chrome browser, it asks you whether we want to provide your geolocation, and if you click allow, Google will always be allowed to retrieve your geolocation, and if you click deny, it will always be denied from that.
Yep. And essentially it's the same setting here as for WebRTC or Timezone. When you click fill geolocation based on IP address, geolocation will be set accordingly to your IP address. You can also set the geolocation coordinates the way you like it. You can set the latitude, longitude, and accuracy. However, you can do that, but essentially the whole premise of the geolocation is that it always corresponds to your IP address, and in some cases you may want to put latitude and longitude yourself. In which cases you may want to do it. I also don't see when should you put it manually. You can just click fill geolocation based on IP address. And
yeah, there is one rare case. It's basically coastal cities. Right now in Multilogin we don't scan for. Basically, we take this IP address, put it into IP to geo database, and retrieve some point, and then apply some randomization, which is derived from accuracy parameter. Accuracy parameter is, by the way, a parameter that every device has. For example, your mobile phone, when it receives GPS coordinates, it can also decide how accurate its own geolocation is. So if it thinks the accuracy is 10 meters, it will provide this 10 meters accuracy to websites, and if it thinks the accuracy is only 100 meters radius, it will provide this accuracy 100 meters, and so on. So based on this information, we create some random point, because if we always make the same geolocation for the same IP address, maybe it's not very natural. It's as if you are not moving and are always stuck to the same point. So we add some minor randomization, but sometimes this randomization puts you into a sea. So maybe you want to check that if your proxy is in a coastal city, and if that happens, you can adjust the geolocation manually. But it's a very rare case, and I think in future we'll develop some solution to handle these cases. So
so currently it can put you in a sea if you enable this, and you may want to check your geolocation, and if it does, just put it manually. Yeah, that's a good case. Okay, and that's all. Is that all regarding IP address? What do you think?
Also, what I would like to add about this geolocation, it's often can be used to increase trust to the account in this way that websites, especially major websites like Google, Amazon, Facebook, they track you all the time. They have like buttons, they have +1 buttons, they have share buttons, they have Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, and so on. Basically, they have trackers on the majority of websites on the internet. So they start tracking you long before you come to those websites and try registering an account. So they collect all information about you that they can get, and sometimes you don't even remember that you already have provided some information. And this is the case with geolocation. For example, first you create a new browser profile, and you go to google.com and you click allow to read my geolocation coordinates, and then maybe 2 or 4 weeks later you don't even remember that you provided those geolocation coordinates, but Google remembers them. So this can be used for increasing trust from web platforms toward your profiles, because you can accidentally provide your geolocation coordinates, and then maybe 2-4 weeks later when you register an account, the trust will be already increased. You may not provide the geolocation coordinates again, but you'll still benefit from the higher trust of this browser profile.
Yeah, that's a good point. Google tracks and other websites track as much as possible about you, and the more they can get, and the more this information corresponds with other specific information that you give out, the more consistencies any website see, the more trust the browser profile has.
Yes, you guys want privacy, but corporations want their data.
Yes.
So whatever they can get their hands on, they'll take.
Yeah, and if they can't take, then they may think it's suspicious.
Yes.
But okay, so we've covered the main points about IP address, and let's get into the settings of the browser profiles, the fingerprints itself, and
so let's now move on to the Navigator menu item, and this is all the settings that you can see here correspond to JS JavaScript Navigator object that is inside the DOM model that every browser renders. So all browsers have these parameters, and let's check what we need and what we need to adjust here and what we don't need to adjust. The first parameter is user agent. It's being retrieved from Multilogin's database, and it always corresponds to the platform value. So they are kind of interconnected. And the user agent, you may want to change it if you know what you are doing, but if you are just starting out with Multilogin, it's better to leave it as it is. The only thing that you can watch now, that you may watch now, is that you have a user agent and a platform value corresponding to the desired operation system, since, as I mentioned before, that OS selector doesn't work right now, but after version 2.2, you may just select operation system, and you don't need to watch this platform user agent anymore. It will be adjusted based on your selection.
I want to add regarding user agents is that some of you may, some of you ask all the time, why are there only certain user agents available in Multilogin? And there's a specific reason. You don't need to have a unique user agent for each of your browser profiles. And because there's maybe around 20 to 30 user agents which are being used by more than 80% of all people on the internet. So you do not need to have a unique user agent. If you, for example, have 100 browser profiles and everywhere you want a unique user agent, you will most likely make these browser profiles stand out too much. The user agent is a very fluid parameter. There's only certain number of them which are being used most popularly. So don't ask us to increase the user agent database. You need to use the most common ones to seem like a user.
Yeah, I would like to add that we may be adding some new user agents and removing the old ones, but it will always be 80% most used user agents. So we won't be adding them all, as it makes no sense for WebRTC, as using very unique, very special user agents only allows making a more precise fingerprint of you and only makes you stand out from the crowd. You need a balance between uniqueness of the profile and also blending inside in a crowd. So this is why we only have a limited number of user agents. The next parameter is screen resolution. It's being selected based on your actual screen resolution. So if you have a full HD screen, the resolution that Multilogin provides here will always be full HD or lower. So if you don't like working in a small window, if you don't find that convenient, you may adjust the setting and manually select from the list of resolutions. Currently it only has desktop resolutions, as we do not recommend emulating mobile phones. Currently it's a separate big topic, so you can choose from these screen resolutions and basically adjust them to according to your needs. The next and the last thing, the last parameter that you might need to change is languages. It can be edited through through an interface, and also it can be edited manually in the input field. Let's try adding, for example, Russian language. You can add it this way. So if you wonder what are different kinds of Russian or other language, it's basically it means Russian is general Russian, and RU it means like it's Russian used in Russia. If you
Russian
Russian. Yes, if you look at other languages like English, it can be English Australian, English United States, English United Kingdom, and so on. So there can be there might be a lot of different language variations based on where this language is used. And also, if you don't know which languages to choose, you may check your current browser, or you may ask someone in the location where you have a proxy server to check their settings on some language checker, like for example, you can use Hoover.net website for that. The link will be provided here in the description, and you may just take a language string from there and copy it here and save the profile. So you don't even have to choose this language manually. But also, if you would like to choose manually, there is a convenient menu. You can do it through it. So we already went through
language. Also, language can be used as a parameter which may correspond to your IP location. And here, for example, if you are connecting through a Russian proxy, or you are emulating a Russian user, you may want to add Russian as primary or secondary language. The reason we have not added this automatically is because a lot of browsers just have the default English language set. So we purposefully left this to user consideration for them to decide whether to put Russian language or English. So, but it's a good idea to have, for example, if you're connecting from a Russian proxy, to have Russian language in your settings.
Yes, there is also another reason why we don't adjust this language parameter automatically. It's because in some areas, for example in Europe, where internet service providers are interconnected, oftentimes your IP address will be resolved to another country. For example, you might be connected from Germany, but your IP address will be resolved to France. And if automatic resolver receives these databases of IP to geo locations, resolve your IP to France, Multilogin will put here a French language. But it's not the case, since actually your language should be German. So that's why this parameter should be adjusted manually based on what you're trying to actually achieve. Once again, we have Skype here.
Нормально, здесь будет, короче, наше видео.
Okay, we'll just blur it out because it cannot be quickly disabled for some reason. Okay, let's move on to the next parameters, and these parameters, if you're just starting out and you don't want to deeply dive into all this stuff, browser fingerprinting stuff, just leave them as they are, because we are watching these parameters, we are watching latest trends, and we adjust these parameters for new browser profiles automatically based on what's working right now and based on how websites react to these parameters. So that's all you need to know about them.
Yeah, just so leave them as they are generated.
Also, I'd like to know that when we talk generated, it's impossible to take real browser fingerprints from our database all the time, so some parameters are being adjusted. For example, we may take some part of a browser fingerprint and change screen resolutions there, or change something that can be changed to produce more browser fingerprints. So when we talk generated, it doesn't mean those profiles are fake. Those are real browser profiles that are being adjusted in a way they can be adjusted. So let's now see the next item. It's fonts, and here we just recommend to leave font masking enabled. It's recommended for everyone, it works very well. As you can see, every profile has a unique list of fonts, and it's a pretty long one. We are also adjusting this algorithm all the time to match recent trends, and for now the best option is to just leave it enabled. So the next parameter or view is media devices, and we recommend leaving it enabled at all times. So Stan, maybe you can talk more about what are video inputs, audio inputs, and audio outputs.
Yeah, so we've already discussed the WebRTC plugin that through WebRTC you can retrieve the public IP address and local IP address, and also can retrieve your media devices. And and the reason is that if WebRTC IP masking is disabled, websites still will be able to retrieve information about your devices. And here well, first of all, we highly recommend that you have media devices enabled. And here you're also able to configure which video inputs, audio inputs, and audio outputs you want the browser profile to have. Video inputs is essentially cameras that you have on your computer. Audio inputs is microphones, and audio outputs is your speakers. You are able to change the amount of devices that the browser profile will have. So for example, audio, you have the option to have as many as 4 microphones. Audio outputs also from 0 to 4. Video inputs can be from 0 to 1.
Yes, here it's not the whole possible range of these devices, so theoretically you can have 10 or 20 video inputs, but it's not very realistic for a common user. For example, your computer may have some virtual audio inputs, virtual audio outputs, and their number is virtually unlimited. It's limited by some very big numbers like 100. But since it's not common, since it's not doesn't correspond to the majority of users, we left those values out. So we think that those values that we allow to set are enough to make a unique enough profile while not standing out too much. And also regarding media devices, I would like to add that if you switch media device masking off, it doesn't work the same way as WebRTC. It doesn't mean that this mechanism will turn down, because in Firefox and Chrome this mechanism is always on and always providing these numbers to website. When you switch it to the off mode, it will only mean that Multilogin will not mask the number of your media devices. So websites will get the real number of your media devices, which of course puts your privacy at risk, puts your anonymity at risk, and which is something you definitely don't want to do.
Yes. Also, media devices have their own unique hashes, and there is no option to specifically change these hashes in Multilogin. This essentially there is no need. Multilogin does this automatically. So all the specific hashes for each individual media device is already configured and changed when you have media devices turned on. So it's super advised that you have mask media devices on.
Okay, let's now move on to the next view, which is hardware. And hardware view is very tricky one, since here are so many options, and different options may work differently in different circumstances. For now, we'll quickly go through them, and this canvas is a canvas object that paints a picture in your browser and makes a fingerprint of your browser based on this picture. AudioContext does the same but with sounds, and WebGL also paints a picture but also provides websites with some data, which is called WebGL metadata. And basically that's all those free fingerprints we call hardware fingerprints. And they can be put to different modes. Here off modes means that this hardware fingerprint won't be changed. This mode is sometimes beneficial. For example, if you use Mac devices which already have, which all have the same, essentially the same hardware fingerprint. For example, all MacBook Pros produced in 2017 are likely to have exactly the same hardware fingerprint, and all Macs produced in 2016 are likely to have the same hardware fingerprints. So in some circumstances it's beneficial to turn this hardware fingerprinting masking on, because if you are already in a very large group, like tens of millions of people who bought MacBook Pro in 2017, maybe you don't need to mask that, because it doesn't provide a lot of information, a lot of unique identifiable information to the website.
And this way you're able to blend in more if you're using off on Macs and popular devices.
Yes. Also for Canvas we have a block mode, which was also added a long time ago. When it worked, when all that Canvas fingerprinting hype has happened, people started blocking Canvas objects, so websites couldn't retrieve data from them. And now for some cases it still works, but for major platforms like Amazon, Google and Facebook, turning this option on may look suspicious. So maybe it's not the best idea to use this option with those websites.
Yeah, but with block mode, the reason why it might work is that essentially when you put it to block mode, when the website will try to make a canvas readout, it will receive NA, so not available, no information from the readout. And this can happen to normal internet users as well, when there is just an error with Canvas. However, these errors are pretty rare. This is why it's a very kind of uncertain area whether to use block or not. For some cases it may work, and it may seem that when the website tries to retrieve the canvas, it just doesn't have any information as with other users. But yes, it's definitely highly advised that you experiment with block mode before getting into any certain conclusions.
Yeah, and since these hardware fingerprints are so complicated, we highly advise to experiment and try different modes and test different settings, so you discover for yourself which settings are working better. We'll have a separate video dedicated to this question. We'll have a separate video where we will explain how to use this modes if you are working with a single browser profile with your team. If you can find a link to this video here below in the description, but if it's not there, it means we'll soon record it and soon we'll publish it. Also, I will repeat once again that I highly advise to subscribe to our Telegram channel. You can see our Telegram channel's URL on your screen right now and also in the video description, because all new videos that we make we first post on our Telegram channel. Some we will also send by newsletter, but on Telegram channel you can find all information that we provide. So I think that's enough for this. The last settings is this WebGL vendor and WebGL render. You may also leave as it is, because Multilogin takes care of these parameters. And let's switch to the next view, which is extensions. This is a legacy view, which was used for preloading extensions in a browser in previous versions of Multilogin, but now it's not needed anymore for users who work manually with the software. We have only left it as a way of automatic preloading browser extensions for those who use automation. So if you don't use automation, and since you watch this video, I think you are not there yet, just leave it disabled, that's it.
Yep.
So the next view is storage options, and this is a very interesting view. This has two options, and first is enable local storage and IndexedDB, and the second is enable extension storage. Extension storage is a very simple option. If you want to use browser add-ons in your browser, you just need to have it enabled. Otherwise, browser extensions, they can be loaded in a browser, but they won't be stored in your profile. So next time you open your browser, they won't restore. So if you want to use browser extensions, just switch this option on. We also consider making it enabled by default, but since this a recent option, we are still measuring how much load it produces in our servers. So I think soon enough, if we get the clear picture, we'll have it enabled by default.
Yep.
And also, I forgot to mention that this option will only be enabled by default for our paid users, since it produces a lot of load, a lot of bandwidth overhead, a lot of storage overhead. So this option we can only make available to our paid users. And the same is valid for the second option, which is enable local storage and IndexedDB. It also produces a lot of bandwidth overhead and takes a lot of space. But this option might be very useful and even needed on certain websites. For example, local storage and IndexedDB can be used for additional login verification on websites like Facebook, like Google. So if you have accounts on those websites, if you work or with those websites you use it for personal purposes, we highly advise making these options enabled. We don't think, we are not sure if they are used for browser fingerprinting, but we know that they are used by mentioned websites, and one of the use cases is checking as additional verification of your login, information.
Essentially, local storage is an additional browser storage where websites can put any kind of identifiable information there, and you can already see all the possibilities that the website can use in order to verify that you're the actual account owner and so on. And what I want to specifically point out is that if you have this option disabled, that then each session launch, both local storage and IndexedDB will be empty. So we highly advise to actually enable this setting.
Yeah, the next view is plugins, and here we have only two options. One is enable potentially vulnerable plugins, and other is enable flash plugin. We recommend for everyone to leave these options disabled unless you clearly know and understand what you are doing. So here I'll just explain how they work, their mechanics, but once again we recommend, highly advise to leave them disabled. Enable potentially vulnerable plugins. Basically, let's start from this, that in Firefox by default you have no plugins enabled. You will only have them if you install them. So there's a lot of users who will have zero plugins installed on their Firefox browser. However, in Chrome, by default, we have 4 plugins enabled. It's Adobe PDF, Whitewine, and the native client plugin. And here we can check, we can go to hoover.net and check from our regular Chrome browser. In extended settings, we have these 4 plugins. Actually, there's 2 plugins for Chrome PDF, which is first is Viewer and another is Chrome PDF plugin. So which makes in total 4 plugins. And Multilogin works in a way that if you launch a browser profile with plugins with this option disabled, it will still tell websites that those plugins are available. However, if they try to actually utilize those plugins, like use the API of those plugins, they will not receive a response. It will mean the same situation as if a plugin had crashed. It happens pretty often in normal users, especially a Flash plugin is very prone to crashing, and Adobe PDF plugin crashes pretty often as well. Whitewine and native client are plugins that are not widely utilized, so it's highly unlikely that a specific website will use them. Actually, the only case of using Whitewine that we know is Spotify website. It utilizes it to play protected DRM content, but I can't even quickly recall other websites that would use this plugin. So just leave this option disabled and be safe with it. The second option, enable Flash plugin, does what it says. It enables Flash plugin. Flash plugin is disabled by default in all modern browsers, or maybe in common modern browsers like Chrome, Firefox, and Opera. And if you absolutely need this plugin, you may turn it on. It will enable Flash plugin, but you should always be aware that Flash plugin may reveal a lot of information about your computer. It has its own API, it runs in a separate process, and if a website wants to retrieve that data from Flash plugin, it has no problems doing so. So if you enable Flash plugin, you are potentially at risk, and a lot of information about your computer, including MAC address, can be retrieved. Potentially, like I don't know whether a certain website will be retrieving that information or not, but it can. So the last view here is has 2 options. Allow multi-start. You don't need this option unless you know what you're going to do with it. And custom DNS is for those situations when maybe a proxy server has incorrectly set their DNS server. So you may be using a proxy server in, say, Germany, which results to a country like Italy. So you may want to manually adjust that and find either a commonly used DNS server like Google DNS or OpenDNS or Komodo DNS, or maybe just find a specific DNS server in a country where this proxy server is located, or where the IP of this proxy server resolves to. So if you found yourself in such situation, you may use this option. Otherwise, just leave it unfilled.
Few things about custom DNS. First, you have to use a real DNS server. So just typing in an IP address, it won't work. You need a real DNS server. And the second thing, if you are using this in the conjunction of, if you're using this setting with proxies, it will only work for SOCKS proxies. It will not work for HTTP ones. Currently we have not found the case why there is a need to do it for HTTP, but yeah, currently it works for SOCKS proxies as well. It also works when you don't use any proxies and the connection is direct, or if you're using a VPN, then you're also able to define custom DNS. Again, but if you use real DNS servers.
I went through all options of Multilogin, and now I believe you should be able to quickly start working with Multilogin and understand what you are doing more or less when creating browser profiles. At this point we'll end this video, but I highly encourage to watch our Telegram channel and see our next videos, as in the next videos we'll be explaining how hardware fingerprints work and how to work in a team, how to work with hardware fingerprints when you're working in a team. We'll also go through top common mistakes that the majority of Multilogin users makes. So if you believe there might be some mistake in your settings, if you believe you might be doing something wrong, we highly encourage to watch these videos, and maybe you'll find what you are doing wrong, and maybe you'll be able to adjust your settings or adjust your work process and achieve better results through it.
Yes, so in our industry is very fast changing, so again we highly encourage you that you watch our videos and to subscribe to our Telegram channels, because when things change you need to know what to do.
Yeah, and you need to be first who knows that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay, thanks very much for watching. I hope this video was really useful to you, and now you, as Donat said, now you know what you're doing. And we believe that from knowledge, knowledge grants you success in this field.
Thank you guys, bye bye.
Bye bye.